All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Sergeant Mo Greenberg with the Baltimore County Police Department. It's my honor to be here with you today. We have a great turnout, and this is a important topic. I hope it'll be a little bit of a fun topic to walk you through, but it's important for both law enforcement and all of you in attendance. So I'm glad you're all here, and I look forward to walking through this with you. Tara?
Thank you. I'm Officer Tara Bond. I'm with the Montgomery County Police in Maryland, and I am one of the co-coordinators of our Autism IDD for Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, Alzheimer's Dementia Outreach Unit. Say that 10 times fast. So we're very happy to be here and present this topic with you. Again, like Mo said, very, very important, but hopefully we can have a little bit of fun in doing it.
Brian?
Hello, everybody. This is Brian Miller. Nice to see everybody on here.
And Brian's with Baltimore County Police as well. And then I'm Shelley McLaughlin with Pathfinders for Autism, and I think we've got the technical difficulty straightened out. So, all right. So everyone feels anxiety when they see the police lights go on behind them or they hear the siren, and you start to wonder, am I in trouble? Did I do something wrong? Sometimes it's simply that the officer has noticed that there's something wrong with the car. You might even just have a light out that they're pulling you over. But this is the time to start thinking about, what do you do when you're being pulled over by the police before you actually have that first interaction?
So one of the first things that we want you to do is pull over slowly. So look for a safe space to pull over. Safety is going to be a common theme throughout this presentation, and both for, again, law enforcement and for you, the driver. So that's paramount for all of us, and we want to conduct this as safely as we can. There's no rush. There's no need other than that sort of uncomfortable feeling when you see the lights behind you. There's no need to feel like you have to do anything right away. Take your time, absorb what's happening, and then look for a safe space to pull over. It's a good idea if you don't have a place to pull over in right there in front of you, and you're looking for a place. It's a good idea to use your turn signal just to acknowledge to the officer that you're trying, that you've seen the officer, you know that their desire is to stop you, and that you are now looking for a safe space to pull over. So using your turn signal or even your flashers helps signal to the officer that you've seen us and now we understand what you're trying to do. So don't feel rushed, just take your time.
And I agree with you, Mo, because I think a lot of times, even like everybody, I've seen it in my 16 years in law enforcement, where people will panic and sometimes they'll just slam on the brakes. And obviously we don't want you doing that, because we don't want to run into you. We don't want anybody else running into you. So just like Mo was saying, sometimes you can't pull over right away. You have to drive for a little bit, and you're going to look for that safe place to pull over.
Yep. So, just like Tara said, it's about finding a safe spot on the side of the road, and just use your mirrors, look around you, know your surroundings, and pull over when you feel and where you feel it's safe to do so. So some examples of where you could pull over might be the shoulder on the side of the road, kind of like you see here in the picture. But not all roadways have shoulders for you. So you could pull curbside. If there's a curb on the side of the road, you could pull onto a parking lot. Or in some cases, we even have people pull into someone's driveway of their home. Again, the goal here is safety. So getting your vehicle positioned and the officer's vehicle positioned in such a way that gets you out of the traffic lane and allows for a safe approach to your car, and that other cars can pass by without anybody getting injured. That's the idea. That's what we're trying to achieve.
So Mo, what happens if there's not a shoulder on the road and I'm not sure where the closest safe place is? How do I keep from getting into trouble because I'm not pulling over fast enough? How can I let you know that I've seen you, but it's not safe for me to pull over yet?
So couple ways, using your turn signal, as I had mentioned before, using your flashers. Either one of those is an indication to the officer behind you that you've recognized that they're trying to stop you. You can even wave through your back window or your rear view mirror and just, again, let them know that you see them. Once we know that you've seen us, then it's looking for a safe place. And we tend to understand that and give you the time to do so. I wouldn't take a half hour to do this, but I would certainly say that if there's no shoulder, we understand, that this is difficult. And in fact, the next slide in this presentation talks about kind of that difficulty. So what if you're in traffic and there's no shoulder, and there's no curb, and you don't feel like you have any alternatives, you don't feel like you have any options? Then what we'd want you to do safely, again, understanding your surroundings. Like I said, this is about just kind of not rushing through this, not panicking, just understanding you need to stop your car for the police and finding the safest way to do so. So in an instance like this, you may actually have to stop in the traffic lane right where you are. But the police car, the patrol car, has lights on it. We have a siren. We have a means to make ourselves very visible so that the cars around you, the cars behind us, would understand that a traffic stop of some sort is being conducted, and they either need to wait or find their way safely around the traffic stop. So for you, the driver, if you're unable to immediately stop, just, again, take your time. You can stop in the lane that you're in. When the officer approaches your car, and they will, you'll roll your window down. And one of the first things I would do is ask the officer, is it okay where I've stopped? Would you like me to try to find a different place? Or do you have a place you suggest I pull over? And in fact, the officer may suggest that right off the bat. Hey, this isn't the best place for us to stop. So I know up here in a block or so is a McDonald's parking lot. I'll follow you up there. Why don't you pull into the McDonald's parking lot? So the officer themselves may ask you to move, or right where you are is where everything will take place, and the rest of the cars in the traffic behind everybody will just have to find their way around this or wait it out. So it's very possible that the traffic stop will take place right where you are if you have no curb, no shoulder, or no other means to do so. What's important here is that you listen to the officer and you communicate with the officer any concerns that you have. When your window's down, when you're stuck in a traffic situation like this, there can be a lot of road noise. Cars going by can be loud. So it can be hard to hear what the officer's saying with a lot of that background noise. So be sure that you understand the instructions if you're given any, and be sure the officer can hear you. They're standing outside, and again, the cars are coming by, and it's hard for us to hear sometimes. So you want to speak up so that the officer can hear any questions or concerns that you may have as well.
Now, we know that it can be really stressful when there's a police car behind you and you know that you're being pulled over. So one of the items that we're going to provide to you with the traffic toolkit is a laminated visor card. So when you first see the lights behind you, you can just flip down your visor card And here are the top 5 things for you to remember, because we all know that it's difficult to try to remember things when we're under stress. So, and along with the visor card, we'll be providing 2 visor clips.
So if I can just walk through these instructions real quick. One of the things that we want you to do is keep your hands on the steering wheel. We also don't want you to get out of your car. We want you to stay inside your car. Again, other cars are coming by. If you remain in your car, that's the safest place for you. And if you have a question or need to get the officer's attention, just sticking your hand outside the window is a good way to do that, and wait for the officer to see or acknowledge that. And the officer will come back and approach you. So stay in your car unless the officer tells you to get out. The other important thing is to tell the officer about your diagnosis. I would, at your earliest opportunity, the officer will come up and introduce themselves. The officer will tell you why you've been stopped. The officer will tell you that the traffic stop is being recorded, and the officer will ask for your driver's license and registration information. And at some point in that conversation, when the officer has done all that, I highly encourage you to share your diagnosis with the officer. In addition, I'd answer any of the officer's questions that they may have. You know, hey, did you know you had a headlight out? Or were you aware that you were going over the speed limit? Or did you know you didn't stop fully for that stop sign? Whatever the case may be, you can answer the questions. Are you the owner of this vehicle? Might be a question. So depending on what the officer is curious about, you can engage and answer those questions. And then lastly, don't leave the traffic stop until you're confident that you can do so. So that may mean that you ask the officer, is it okay if I leave now? Or the officer will tell you, okay, it's safe for you to go. And we'll talk about what to do at the conclusion of the stop here in a moment.
And real quick, Mo, I'm going to jump in. That self-disclosure piece is so important, because not only are you helping you because you can tell us what you need, but you're also helping the police officer, because we very well may not know that you have a disability. Yep. And if you do have a disability and there's an accommodation or something we can do to help you, we definitely want to know about that. So because the whole point in this is we want to have safe, positive interactions with you, as well as you having those with us.
Agreed. And that again rolls right into this particular slide. And this slide talks about managing any sensory issues that you may have. The lights on a police car can be quite bright, and a lot of flashing can be going on and at different rates. The light bar on top of the car could be flashing at one rate, and the headlights going back and forth, and there could be other lights on the car that are sort of snapping and popping all at the same time, and it can be overwhelming for anybody. So if the lights or the siren or any aspect of this traffic stop are creating any sensory issues for you, communicating your diagnosis early on helps the officer understand his or her need to try to accommodate you and your needs. So the other thing to know is that at nighttime, there may be some additional lights that are used, like on the one photo, you see a spotlight there being illuminated as well. It's very common for officers to use their spotlight to illuminate the inside of the car. So there can be a lot of light, very bright, and a lot of things flashing. So if you have any sensory issues, we'd ask you to communicate that with the officer. And if there is something that he or she can do about it, they will. Depending on the kind of car that they have and the kind of lighting system that they have, they may have a lot of control or they may have some limited control. And each instance will be different. But as long as you communicate it and the officer understands your needs, he or she will do their best to try to minimize any sensory issue. Also, speaking of traffic stops at nighttime, It's helpful for the officer because, again, we use that spotlight to illuminate the inside of the car to light everything up so that we can see very well. It's helpful if you turn the interior light on in your car just to further help us achieve that. The reason that all of this stuff happens, all of these lights flashing and all of this stuff focused on your car, is officer safety. Traffic stops are the #1 ways in which officers are injured or even killed in the line of duty. And as a result of that, we take a lot of precautions. And that's not to suggest that you, the driver, have done anything wrong. It's just to ensure that we're safe and that you're safe. And lighting is an important part of our safety and your safety at nighttime. So turning that interior light on will be very helpful. So when the officer approaches your car, rolling your window all the way down is helpful so that the officer can communicate with you. Again, that's really going to help you hear the officer and really help the officer hear you. If it's pouring down rain and all of that, then you can roll your window down partially. But the idea here is that we have a good line of communication and that nobody has any misunderstandings. So rolling your window down makes that a little easier.
Real quick, Mo, just one misunderstanding that could be like a common one for us is if you don't roll your window down. So say somebody is under the influence or they're trying to hide something from us in their car, that might be one tactic that they use. It's not rolling the window the whole way down. Whereas maybe your window's broken or you're not quite sure. So that's why if an officer pulls you over and you don't roll the window down the whole way, they're usually going to ask you, can you please roll the window down the whole way? And again, not because you're a bad person or you're trying to do anything, but there are unfortunately people out there that do use that tactic because they are doing something they shouldn't be doing.
Right. And in this picture, you see the officer standing on the driver's side of the car, but you can also see that he's standing very close to the roadway. So there may be instances where it's safer for the officer to approach your car on the passenger side. So most people just expect the officer to come up to the driver's side, and the officer may not do that every time. So just understand and know that the officer can approach on your passenger side to have you roll down that window and talk to you through the passenger window. Even though it's a little more awkward, it may be safer for the officer, and that may be what they choose to do. So it's, again, safety, I told you, would be the theme of this. And it's not unusual for there to be more than one patrol car that shows up at your traffic stop. I had just mentioned a short few comments ago that traffic stops are the #1 way in which police officers are injured or even killed in the line of duty. So we try to back each other up when we can for our own safety. But it's also, again, a matter of visibility, right? The more flashing lights we have on the scene, the more other cars who are traveling around us know that this is something to avoid right now, or there's a hazard that they need to be prepared to stop for. And it helps keep everybody safe. Another reason for other vehicles is there may be new officers who are just coming on and still in training, and they may be coming to experience and learn more and more about whatever is happening, in this case, a traffic stop. So it's not uncommon to see more than one officer at a traffic stop. Again, that's not something that should cause you any undue concern. It's a standard practice. So no need for any particular alarm there when it's just officers helping officers, basically.
And if you have multiple occupants in your car, so it's more, say there's like you and 3 of your friends, typically we're probably going to get another officer there just because safety in numbers. Because say there are the people out there that might have just committed a crime and are not up to good, it's more safe for police officers to have a good ratio of officers to people. So that's another reason if you have a lot of people in your car that they might request additional backup. Just like he said, the field training officer in Montgomery County, we ride with the FTO, what we call our field training officer. So they're on the calls with us. And we kind of joke around too. Sometimes it's a slow night. And if you just happen to go past and there's a stop, some of us will stop just to make sure everything's okay. So sometimes you can get a bunch of us just because, you know, we happen to be in that area and it's a slow night. So again, we understand that can kind of be an extra cause for concern when you don't understand what's going on, but no need to worry.
Okay, so the officer will approach your car. Again, just driving the point home about officer safety and your safety. The one thing that we want to do in order for us to feel safe and to know that you're safe is to see your hands. So keeping your hands where they're visible to a police officer will make that officer feel much, much more comfortable than if they can't see your hands at all. If we can't see your hands, we don't know what you're doing and what your intentions are. If we can see your hands, we know that chances are you understand our concerns for our safety and that you're happy to accommodate that and that you have no ill intentions, which unfortunately some people do. So keep your hands visible and then wait for the officer to ask for your driver's license or your vehicle registration or your insurance information before you go reaching for them. Any sudden reaches without our knowledge or direction, again, make us feel a little uncomfortable. So we want you to know that. And by knowing that, you can slow things down, keep your hands visible, and help us help you through the traffic stop process. Just make sure I didn't miss anything. The other thing is that police officers conduct traffic stop after traffic stop after traffic stop. So for us, this is something that we just do all the time. For you, the driver who hasn't been stopped before, this is a whole new experience. And I say this to recognize that sometimes officers are so used to saying the same thing over and over again that they say it very quickly, comes out fast. So again, whether it's road noise, whether it's a fast talking officer, and you're not understanding what's happening, just take a deep breath, let the officer know that you didn't hear them and you'd like them to repeat their statement, their question, their instructions, or again, let them know your concerns if you have them. But we're trying to overcome traffic noise. We're trying to overcome any miscommunications that could occur for any number of reasons. And it's okay for you to ask politely for the officer to repeat themselves or to clarify something that you feel you need clarification on. So this comes back to disclosing your diagnosis. And so in addition to the visor clip that we will be providing, we'll be making sure that you have these cards as well. And it's helpful for the officer, again, to just reduce any chances of misunderstanding what's happening here. You know, we do see drivers who have some ill intentions, who appear unusually nervous or who are exhibiting behaviors that we could otherwise think are suspicious. And we don't want that to happen in your case. So some of your stress or anxiety may exhibit itself in a way that would concern a police officer otherwise, but sharing your diagnosis with them helps them put it in the proper context and helps them understand exactly what's going on. So again, doing so may make the officer much more willing to slow things down for you, to be more interactive with you and answer any questions or concerns you have, be more willing to accommodate your sensory needs by adjusting their lights if at all possible. So that disclosure of the diagnosis, like Tara said, is really important. And this is a way for you to do that, whether it's you telling them or whether it's providing the card. Either way helps them understand it. And it's also a good idea if you communicate to the officer any calming or coping strategies that you use, just to let them know. Again, this is kind of a dialogue, kind of a brief little relationship between you and this officer, and anything that you can inform them about so that they understand what you're doing and why you're doing helps them. And again, creates the circumstance where they will try to help you.
And real quick, I should jump in. It's not only are you not helping the police in telling us about your diagnosis, and by advocating for yourself, you're potentially helping somebody else down the road that might not be able to advocate quite as much as you. So you're just in general, not only helping the police, you're helping yourself, but potentially also helping other drivers down the road that may have the same or similar diagnosis as you.
Very true. So a lot's going on. It's a lot to process, and we understand that you may not be happy that you've been stopped by the police. We understand that you may have some questions or concerns about why you were stopped, and that's fine. The thing that we ask is that if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, that you communicate them politely. As long as you're polite with the officer should return that kindness and that politeness right back to you. And that's what we want to see happen. If you begin to argue with the officer, that's only going to kind of start a downward spiral of things not going the way that we would like to see them go. So if you find yourself arguing, just try to remember this presentation, try to remember us talking about it, take a breath, go back to being polite. And again, the officer, if they started to argue, will probably follow you right there. So if you started to argue and you go back to being polite, the officer who was arguing will also go back to being polite. So just try to remember, be polite, be respectful, and the officer will do the best that they can to return that to you. And again, understand and work with you through this process.
And real quick, I want to go with the do not argue, because sometimes drivers will not agree with, say you get a traffic citation issued, say you ran a stop sign and the officer decides to give you a traffic citation. You may not understand it. It was an accident. You didn't intend to run the stop sign. You don't understand or agree with it. We cannot take up any kind of argument, or we're not going to handle or resolve that ticket at that point. That's why you have the court system. So not saying any one of you would do this, but we have had, and I know Mo's probably had it, where somebody's tried to have the court right there in the roadway, which isn't a safe place. And once we've issued the traffic citation, you're going to have to go through the traffic court system to be able to handle that. And if you need any questions, again, like he was saying, politely, even if you're frustrated, just saying like, I've never gotten a traffic citation. I don't know how to deal with this. What should I do? If you need a little further explanation than just what's on the side of the ticket.
Mm-hmm. And so if you do get a ticket and you don't know what your options are, how does that happen? Can you explain that process, how you receive in the mail the court citation and what your options are?
Sure. Do you want me to take that, or Mo, you want to get it?
Go right ahead, Tara.
Okay. So most time, anytime I pulled a car over, which actually it's been quite a number of years, when I pulled a car over and I've issued the traffic citation, I explain to them that they have to make a decision. So say it's a traffic violation for running the stop sign, what we consider a moving violation. That will often carry a monetary fine as well as points. Whereas say as your registration, your tags on your vehicle are expired, that would only be a monetary fine. There's no moving violation, so there's no points. A lot of times people are concerned about points because that can affect your insurance and it can affect your ability to hold on to your license. So a lot of times people won't understand. They want to know what's going on. So we'll explain. You can either come to court, but you have to request the traffic court date. And you have a couple options. So if you agree that, okay, I accidentally ran that stop sign and I'm guilty of that, you can request a court date to go to talk to the judge, and you're doing guilty with an explanation. which means the police officer will not be coming to court because you've already admitted guilt and you just want to ask for leniency or explain your side of the story. Then there you can request a trial where you want the officer to come as well as you, and you want to tell the judge and you want to test and, you want to have a trial as to you don't agree with that traffic citation. And then there's the option of you paying the ticket. When you pay the ticket, if there is any kind of point associated with that, you would automatically get the point. So those are your options. You can pay the ticket. Sometimes it's just a monetary fine, but if it's a monetary fine with points, those points would automatically go when you pay the ticket. You can ask for a court date because you don't agree with the ticket and you want both yourself and the officer to show up and testify about what happened that day. Or you can say guilty with an explanation. You want to go tell the judge what happened and maybe asking for leniency in the fine or the points. But you have to make sure that you're following the instructions and you're doing those within the time frame. That way you don't have any kind of further hiccups down the road with your license being suspended. And I don't know if you want to jump in, Mo, if I missed anything that you want to cover.
So what will happen if you receive, so you're going to, almost all traffic stops are documented, which means that if you're stopped, you're going to receive one of three pieces of paper. One is called a safety equipment repair order, and that means that you might have a headlight or a tail light or a brake light out that needs to be addressed. So you'll be issued one of those. And that just says that you have to get whatever that item is that's broken fixed within a certain period of time. It's not going to go on your driving record. It's nothing to be concerned about. And again, it's about traffic safety so that if you have a brake light out, people behind you can see your brake light's working once it's fixed and stop and not run the risk of rear-ending you because they don't know that you've applied your brakes. So that's a safety equipment repair order. The other thing that you might receive is a warning, and the officer decides not to issue you a traffic citation, but instead a warning. The warning documents the traffic stop. The warning says what moving violation you committed and asks you to be mindful of the traffic laws and try to do better next time. Again, it's not something that goes on your record or you have anything to really worry about. The repair order you have to have fixed in a certain amount of time. So that's something you need to follow up on. The warning, you really don't have to do any follow-up. It doesn't require any action on your part. And then the traffic citation, a ticket, if you will. And if you get one of those, just like Tara described, the officer is going to describe for you what your options are, what you need to do or don't need to do with regard to what action you need to take for this ticket. But we know and understand that, again, there's a lot going on during a traffic stop, a lot of anxiety, and you may not hear everything clearly. You may not remember everything that the officer said. You may have some questions. And usually on the printed copy of your ticket, there is some instructions. So you can read the ticket and see if that answers anything that you didn't understand or helps you understand what action item you need to do next. But if not, then ask someone you know. Ask a parent, a friend, someone else who has been through this before, received a ticket from the police, if they can help guide you with what you need to do about the ticket that you received, depending on what it is. And if nothing else, you can come into a police department and ask us questions. You can stop an officer that you see, not during a traffic stop or not while they're handling or investigating a crime. But if you see an officer who's just, driving and you want to flag him down, or you see an officer who's walking, checking businesses and you want to stop and talk to them, we're happy to answer questions for you. We don't want you confused or, again, like Tara said, running the risk of not taking the action you need to and then getting your license suspended or having other problems. So feel free to ask any questions to anybody that you are comfortable with, including the police, when it comes to receiving a traffic citation and anything that you don't understand.
And real quick, I forgot one other option is a must appear, which really isn't an option. It's going to tell you that you have to appear in court. And it's really important that you keep your driver's license with your residence up to date. Make sure your license has your most up to date where you're living. And if you have moved, you don't always have to just get a new license. You can actually go on the MVA and complete an updated address, and then they'll send you a little updated address card. Because when we issue any kind of traffic citation or equipment repair order, everything's going to be associated with that address on your license. So if it's changed, and say you forgot that little card that they give you from the MVA with your updated address, let the officers know. So you could also have a must appear, just like Mo was saying. Say you accidentally run the stop sign, and it happens to all of us. I think we could all raise our hands. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. It can happen, right? And you get a ticket. That officer gives you a ticket, and for whatever reason you forget about it, or something happens that you don't do what you're supposed to do and request a court date or pay that ticket. And then they suspend your license because you didn't do what you're supposed to do. So like a suspended license, driving on that is a must appear. So some traffic citations will carry a must appear, which you really don't have to do anything other than looking out in the mail for that to come from the court system, that you need to show up on this day and this time at this court. And then the equipment repair order, very important that you do get it fixed. Some are easier than others. Headlights, you can always have a friend or help you out. Some you actually might have to go to a mechanic to have them do it, but you want to make sure that you get it signed off on the time frame, and I believe it's 30 days. This is really bad because I've been a police officer 16 years, so I'm just throwing myself under the bus there. But I believe it's 30 days, and if you don't, then they can also suspend your registration for your vehicle. And if it goes on long enough, they can actually do a tag pickup order, which would mean if you got pulled over, we'd be taking your tags and towing your vehicle. So like Mo said, if you ever have any questions, ask one of your family members, a friend, an officer when they're not in the course of their duty, handling a call for service or on a traffic stop.
Okay, so this can happen, right? When you're stopped, there's, like I've said, a lot going on, and this might just be not the best day for you, and those lights start flashing behind you. You don't feel like you've done anything wrong. The sensory stuff is starting to get to you, and that overwhelming feeling is coming over you, and you feel that meltdown coming on. Again, a really good idea to help the officer help you and help the officer understand what's happening is to communicate this with the officer. You ask for help by stating, hey, I'm feeling overwhelmed by all of this at the moment. I have a diagnosis for autism or whatever your diagnosis may be. And I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. In fact, I feel a meltdown coming on, and could you please just be patient with me? And I don't know of an officer who wouldn't be willing to help you calm down to the extent that they can, and help you soothe your moment of crisis, and work with you through this. I don't know an officer that if you ask them, as I sort of described, after telling them your diagnosis, that you're feeling overwhelmed and that you need a minute, that the officer would not give you that minute. And by a minute, I don't literally mean a minute. I mean, give you the time that you need to sort of collect yourself and come back to a point where, while you still may not be happy that this is all happening, and again, it may not be your best day, but you can at least function through the remainder of the traffic stop. And that, again, is our goal, to get you through this. As we understand, it's an unpleasant circumstance, but as quickly and efficiently and effectively as we can, with as little upset to you as possible. So that communication is really important. And again, voicing to the officer what they can do to help you is important. So, officer, could you please turn the lights down a little bit if you're able? Officer, could you just talk to me in a calm voice? That will help me calm down a little bit. Or, do you mind if I do some rocking right now? Whatever it is that helps you, most officers are willing to accommodate and participate and do what they can to get you through this as best as possible. So the officer is going to ask for your driver's license, your vehicle registration, and your insurance card. And we're going to give you, as part of this, an envelope, which we'll talk about here in a minute, to hold your vehicle registration and your insurance card. We encourage you to keep your driver's license with you in your wallet, in your purse, on your person, however you choose to do so, but not have your driver's license in the envelope. So the officer will come up and say, can I have your driver's license, vehicle registration, and insurance card? And you will say, here's my license. You'll provide that out of your wallet, or again, what purse, wherever your pocket, wherever you're providing it from. And it's our hope that you'll keep this envelope that we're going to talk about in a minute in the glove box of your vehicle or center console of your vehicle, somewhere where it's easily accessible to you. And that these documents will be contained in it so that you don't have to hunt for them. You automatically know where it is. And the envelope will be self-explanatory here in a second, but the officer will take all of these documents from you, go back to their car. They'll leave you, walk back to their car, where most officers have a computer, a laptop computer, where we'll run the information. We're going to check that your driver's license is valid and hasn't been suspended for any reason. And we're going to check and make sure that your vehicle is registered properly, insured properly, and otherwise in compliance with the laws of the state. And if anything isn't, we will let you know about that. And again, you may receive some paperwork about that, whether it's a warning or a traffic citation. You may receive something, but they'll take your information back to their car and they'll be there for a little bit. It takes a little bit of time to get this stuff into the computer, and then a little bit of time for the computer to spit back out at us the information that we're checking. So this is an example of the envelope that I just described. So again, it's our hope that you'll keep this somewhere that's very accessible to you, and that in that you will keep your vehicle registration card and your insurance card. I think Tara and I could tell you the number of times that we've asked for this information, and people are just ripping through their car looking for it and can't find it anywhere, pulling out wads and wads of stuff from their glove box, and they're just unable to locate the vehicle registration or insurance card. And again, they start to spin up and get worried and anxious that they can't find it, but they know it's here somewhere. Well, we're giving you the means to eliminate that, that you have this envelope with those items in it, readily available to you whenever, if ever. Hopefully you'll never need it. Hopefully you're all perfect drivers and you'll never get stopped by the police. Your vehicles are always in compliance and you'll never get stopped by the police. But should you be, you'll know exactly where this stuff is. You will hand the entire envelope to the officer, and there's a purpose for this. This envelope contains some instructions, again, about the context of this traffic stop that helps let the officer know right away what's happening. So on the back of the envelope, when you hand it to the officer, are some instructions for the officer. Just like you have your visor card that helps give you instructions, keep your hands visible, stay in the car, all of that. This is instructions for the officer to help you. So we ask that the officer speak calmly. We ask that the officer use clear, simple words and sentences. We ask that the officer try to give one instruction at a time. We ask that the officer allow you some time to process any questions or statements that the officer has made or requests that the officer has made. We ask that the officer try to reduce noise and lights if at all possible. And it may not be until the officer receives this envelope and receives that instruction that he or she realizes the need to do so. So be patient and let them look all of this over, because not all officers have seen this before. This is new and something that we find terrific value in for both you and the police. And we're trying to expand this program so that everybody knows about this. All police officers know about this, but for right now, it's still new to officers. So they need to read this and understand what's happening. and that they allow you time to fidget or rock or do whatever your calming technique or techniques are. And if you, the driver, is upset, that maybe we consider calling an emergency contact person or someone that you would recommend and feel comfortable having participate in this. So the envelope is a really important and helpful document for the officer. Now, I just have to give you one little word of caution here, and that is that some people hand us their vehicle registration or their insurance information or even their driver's licenses sometime contained in something. And we don't like to take it out. We ask you to take it out. So it is possible that the officer may say, would you take the documents out of the envelope, because they don't understand what this envelope is. They just think you're a driver who keeps your stuff in something like everybody else. And we don't want the something. We just want your vehicle registration and your insurance information. So this is where dialogue is important, where communication is important. So you can, if the officer asks you to take the items out, take the items out, but tell the officer, this envelope is really important because I have a diagnosis, whatever that is, and it's designed to help you help me. And it's designed to keep us both safe. So by you explaining what the envelope is for, the officer will be much more willing to accept it and read it, and again, do what they can to help.
And I just want to remind everybody that while we are going to hold questions until the end, you can type your question into chat at any time.
So in an effort to, again, keep you reminded and refreshed on some of the things that are important to do during a traffic stop, should you ever be stopped by the police, this too is something else that we're going to provide you with. And it's a little flyer with some tips that explain a lot of what we've talked about here. But that too is something to have with you that you can refer to at any time if you feel like you need a refresher or a reminder, or if a question pops up, and this is a good place to go to. So patience is important when it comes to a traffic stop, because these can take a little bit of time. And if I were to sit here and just go silent for 1 minute, that would feel like a really long, uncomfortable minute. But when we're talking about a traffic stop, we could be talking about 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 15, or even 20 minutes, depending on what's happening. And what I mean, what's happening is sometimes our computers in our car run particularly slow, and it takes us a very long time to get information back when we want it back as quickly as you do, so that we can get you back in the car and end this traffic stop for you. We want that to happen just as much as you do, but sometimes our computers run slow. Other times, information comes back that we have to sort through. So if you happen to have a very common name like Michael Smith, there's a lot of Michael Smiths out there, and it's possible when we put your information into the system that it's going to come back with a Michael Smith who's a problem. Not you, but we need to take a few extra minutes to verify that it's not you. And that could take some time. So all things considered, your patience is really important, and it's really helpful for the officer, so that we know your time's important and we want to get you back on the road as quick as you can, but your being patient is really, really helpful. Just because this is taking time does not mean that the officer is going to give you a ticket. One does not mean the other. There's the warning can take just as much time. The safety equipment repair order could take just as much time. So don't read anything into the fact that this is taking a while. Just be patient for us to fill out the paperwork that we need to, do the processing of the information that we need to, and hopefully, should you be stopped, our computers will be running as optimally as possible.
And real quick, Mo, The
Yes.
waiting in the car is really important because you touched on it earlier, because you could be in a really busy roadway. So primarily for your safety, but also another officer safety concern is, again, if you have that person that has the ill intentions and is maybe, wanted or did something wrong, they could get out of the car and come at us. So anytime somebody gets out of the car, it kind of makes officers' level of concern for what's going on in our protection and our safety. We get a heightened alert, right? A heightened sense of awareness, because it very well could just be you and you might not understand, or you might want to see what's going on and why it's taking so long. But there are other people that have tried to do harm and hurt an officer. So that's why it's really important, not only for your own safety, just to stay in the vehicle, but it also lets us know that you're not a threat and you're not a problem. And that way everybody can stay safe.
And like I said, it's not uncommon that you think of something or have a question that you feel you need answered sooner than later, or a concern that needs to be addressed sooner than later. That's not uncommon. So instead of getting out of the car, again, roll down your window, keep your hand out of the window until the officer sees it and acknowledges for you that they'll come back to you. Okay. So that way we can resolve whatever concern or question you have, but let the officer come to you. Don't get out of your car. So now we're starting to near the conclusion of the traffic stop. And again, you want to make sure that the officer has told you that you can leave, that the stop is concluded and you can go. Usually a good indication of that is that the officer has returned all of the documents to you: your driver's license, your vehicle registration, your insurance card, in this case, the envelope, and the autism awareness card, or whatever other documents you've provided. All of that is returned to you, is a good indication that the traffic stop's concluded. That the paperwork that I cited or described earlier is issued to you, whether it's a warning, a safety equipment repair order, or a traffic ticket. That being issued to you and those instructions about those being issued to you, again, is a good indication to you that the traffic stop is ending. And then wait for the officer to tell you, okay, it's safe for you to go. Or say to the officer, is it okay for me to go now? And the officer will confirm that for you, or tell you, no, not yet. And then you just continue to wait until the officer does tell you to do so. Now, getting yourself back into traffic can be a bit challenging. And again, like I started this conversation, this is all about safety. So we want you to pull onto the road safely. Now, initially, that may be up to you. You may have to look through your mirrors. You may have to use your turn signal. You may have to turn your head behind you to make sure no cars are coming, whatever the case may be. And if you feel you can pull back into the roadway safely, then do so when you feel it's safe to do so. However, if you don't feel that you can do this because cars are just whizzing by, this is a very busy road, you pulled over in a difficult spot, whatever the case may be, ask the officer if they can stop traffic for you to pull out safely. And again, when asked, I don't know of an officer who won't be willing to accommodate that for you. So say to the officer, would you mind stopping traffic for me so that I can pull out safely? Give the officer a minute to do so, and he or she should be willing to do so. Okay.
And real quick, Mo, I forgot. I don't know if I didn't hear it or if we forgot to mention it about the possibilities of what you could get on a traffic stop. You could get nothing at all, or verbal warning as well. So those are other two options. I know a lot of places you're going to, you have to hand out something. So typically, if it's nothing, it's going to be a written warning. But there are some places that you might be in this country that you still may get like nothing. They may say, you know what, everything's fine, go ahead, or verbal warning as well.
Yep. Okay, so there could be a time where you're stopped by the police and you have friends or family or somebody else in the car with you. And what about them? What do they do during this time? Well, the same rules that apply to you apply to everybody else in the car. So when it comes to like keeping your hands visible, we'd like to see everybody's hands visible. So not everybody has the steering wheel to put them on, right? So we'd like you to have your hands on the steering wheel, but maybe everybody else could kind of hold their hands like I'm holding them, kind of up here in front of them somewhere, or, you know, very visible in their lap. We just want hands visible. Like I said, it's a safety matter for us. And the more visible the hands are, the more safe that we will feel. The other thing is that depending on the circumstance, the officer may ask your passengers to identify themselves. They may ask the front passenger or back passenger to produce identification, just like they ask for your driver's license. So again, what we would ask is that anybody who is asked to do so, that they comply and do what the officers have asked to do politely and respectfully. Even if they don't understand it, go along with the program, do what the officers asked politely and respectfully. And if you have questions or they have questions, they too can ask those questions, provided that they're asked in a calm and respectful manner. Like I said, we understand people, this isn't something that people experience at the frequency we do. So we want to help you and help others understand what's happening. Okay.
All right, we just want to briefly go over the move over law, because not everybody is aware of this. So Mo, would you like to go ahead and explain
Sure.
what the move over law is?
So again, safety is the theme, and safety is what is the underlying reasoning by having the move over law. So as I mentioned to you, traffic stops are the #1 cause of injury and or death in the line of duty for police officers, but also for highway maintenance workers, utility workers, and other people who have to work alongside the roadway. So in Maryland, we've come up with a law that asks you, the driver, to move over one lane should you see a traffic stop happening. You're not the one being stopped. You're driving down the road, and up ahead of you is a traffic stop. And if you can move over one lane, if you're on a roadway that permits that, that's what the law requires you to do, so that the officer conducting the stop and the driver being stopped can remain as safe as possible. Similarly, if you see a highway maintenance vehicle or workers on the side of the road, the same law applies. That if they have, the warning lights flashing and all that stuff on their vehicles, you're required to move over one lane so that they can do their work as safely as possible. Now, there are times where you won't be on a roadway that has a lane for you to move over, or there'll be other traffic in that lane and you can't move over. So the law understands that. The law understands that this move over situation is not going to be perfect all the time. What you then do is slow down, but you need to really demonstrate that you've slowed down so that the officer or the construction workers, road workers, see that effort to acknowledge them and their safety. Doing so in both instances, either pulling over, moving over one lane, or slowing down and continuing with care, keeps you from violating this law. If you don't, if you were driving full speed and you had the ability to move over and you didn't, then you could be stopped for breaking the move over law and receive a citation for that. So the move over law is designed to keep emergency workers and highway service workers and utility workers all safe, because they do a lot of work in the roadway.
All right. Now, everyone who participates in tonight's webinar and tomorrow's practice session as well will receive one of the traffic stop kits that we talked about. All you need to do is email me and I will send those out to you. If you are participating in the traffic stops tomorrow, you will receive your traffic stop kit at that time. I'm also going to put my email address for you in the chat. Okay, and when you receive today your reminder email for tonight's webinar, that came from me. So if you also have that email, you can simply reply. I'll need you to send me your name and your mailing address in order for me to send you the traffic kit.
And again, Michelle, that's only, Shelley, that's only for people that will not be at the practice session tomorrow.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Because people that are at the session tomorrow, I will give them their kits there.
Okay.
If you have not yet signed up for tomorrow's practice session and you wish to do so, you can either go back to our website and sign up there, or you can copy this link. And I'm actually going to ask Neil if he could please put in the chat the link from our website for tomorrow's practice session. When I switch screens, or what I'll do is before I switch screens, I'll give you an opportunity also. If you want, you can take a picture of this screen so that you'll have that web address. Now, I want to take a look at some of the, and Neil's put it up in the chat. There we go. Thank you, Neil. So let's see what some of the questions are. Is there a limited stimming time? How long can we stim?
So, like I said, traffic stops can last on average 10, 12 minutes, give or take. It just depends. And once the officer has collected your driver's license, vehicle registration, and insurance information, most of the time is spent with the officer in their own vehicle, in the patrol vehicle, doing the work that they need to do. So that's the sizable part of or portion of the traffic stop, meaning that you'll be in your car, he or she will be in their car, and you can take all of that time to do whatever stimulating or soothing that is necessary for you. Even when the officer approaches the car to issue your documents back and explain to you what document he or she may issue to you, if you're still self-soothing or stimulating in some way, it's totally fine, provided that you've, again, had that early discussion with the officer about your diagnosis. And so when the officer comes back to find you doing whatever it is that you're doing, they understand it and would probably not do anything to discourage you from doing so, but to collect the documents back that they need to issue you and make sure that you understand everything at the conclusion of the stop.
And real quick, I'm going to jump in there, Mo.
Sure.
So when we train all of our police officers about autism and other intellectual developmental disabilities and stimming and how that's a self-regulatory, self-calming behavior, we always train our officers, as long as it's not a danger to that person or anybody else, we're going to let the person do it. That's why we do a lot of education with individuals with disabilities themselves, as well as the family members and caregivers, so that you as a person with a disability can advocate for yourself, or if you don't have that ability, that a family member or a caregiver can advocate for you. So we do train our officers here in Montgomery County that is something that they could witness or experience with somebody in crisis that has a disability or a meltdown. So as long as it's not presenting a danger to you or anybody else, you know, if you need to be there for as long as you need to be there, you know, we might not be able to be there for like an hour, but we are, like Mo said, you do have that time when we're away from you and we're doing what we need to do in our car. But just understand it, say it would be something, maybe you start smashing your head into the steering wheel. That might be something we're going to maybe try to stop you and keep you safe and not getting injured. But I just wanted to make that clarification that, you know, we will try to work with you for as long as we can. And that's why it's really important about the self-disclosure and advocating for yourself and what's going to help calm you down. But unfortunately, sometimes we do have to step in if it's going to hurt somebody else or themselves.
Someone has a suggestion. They want to know, how about the police employing the system used by E-ZPass toll? By that, the driver has a specific system in their car via which the police gets the instant download of all of the driver's information rather than asking for information manually placed in the envelope. This might keep both the officer and the driver safer.
I love this suggestion, and the warp speed thinking and the technology and use of technology for this. I love the concept, and there's some issues, and one of the issues is that the registered owner of the vehicle is not always the driver of the vehicle. So, for example, I have children who are of age to drive, but the vehicle is registered in my name. So they hop from car to car, you know, whatever car has gas in it or whatever is the one that they might be driving today. And so the vehicle and the driver are not necessarily aligned all the time. Plenty of the time, but not necessarily all the time. So we do make use of technology in an effort to be more efficient in our traffic stops, in an effort to be more efficient in our traffic stops. And that is that we have scanners in our cars that allow us to scan your driver's license, which automatically populates the information that is contained on it, rather than us having to type each little thing in. And similarly with your vehicle registration, we can scan that, and it has sort of like a barcode scanner type concept that allows us to scan that and again have your vehicle registration populate for us. But technology is technology. Police can be rough on their equipment. So these things are not always working when we need them to work. These things, again, the computers are not the latest and greatest. We don't get them replaced every year with the quickest stuff. So lots of times we're working with some very antiquated equipment, and much of that's attributed to cost. Budget drives a lot of this stuff in law enforcement, and there's a lot of things that we would love to have. And like I said, this is a great idea, but the cost of doing so would usually either prohibit or greatly delay the time in which we would see it. So if we got it and we got approval for it, chances are by the time we got it, it would be the old technology already. And somebody else, another great thinker like you, would have come up with another great concept.
All right, we have a list of some additional questions. One driver asks, I have a hard time with eye contact. What if the police think I'm not listening?
So again, that I have to come back to the dialogue and how important that is, that early diagnosis, the early disclosure of your diagnosis, like Tara had said, really sets the stage for how all of this goes. You're absolutely right that eye contact is something that we pay attention to and would like to see, and sometimes might become suspicious of if we don't see it. But it's not just people with autism who have trouble making eye contact. Sometimes it's sometimes there's some cultural things that inhibit people from making eye contact, or somebody's just not comfortable doing so for any number of reasons. But it's not unheard of for us to be suspicious of someone who doesn't. By you sharing your diagnosis early on in this traffic stop, and just coming out and saying that, officer, one of the things I have trouble with is making eye contact with people. So I may not look you in the eye when we're talking. I hope that's okay. The officer will understand that, put it in the proper context, and you won't have any issues or concerns. That dialogue is very, very important.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next question. When pulling an autistic person over, does the police officer contact a police department social worker when they cannot handle the driver's behavior?
So that's a great question. Like Tara had said, we are doing more and more to try to bring awareness to this and train our officers so that they are as sensitive and informed as they can be to anyone who has some issues. And so if things were to get to a point where the officer felt that things are out of hand, then they do have some resources. We have officers who do work with counselor and or social worker type civilian folks that are partnered with them that could come and render assistance. What that will do is delay the traffic stop. So that's someone who has to be summoned to come to wherever the traffic stop's being conducted. And it just depends where they are, how long their travel time is. But if that is something that the officer feels will be helpful for you, if that's something you feel would be helpful for you, then that can certainly be accomplished and accommodated by most police departments.
And real quick, whenever you do register for your license, there's a opportunity for you to list emergency contacts. So this also might be helpful. You know, again, coming back to the communication point, if you're going to work with the officer, if that's one of your strategies is getting a family member there that can help, please communicate that with the police officer. Because if somebody just shows up on the traffic stop, that could be, you know, we're wondering what's going on. But you can list an emergency contact for yourself whenever you do get your driver's license. So I don't think that's a bad idea for everybody, just because it would help us in the event that there is an emergency of any kind, being able to know who we can contact. So again, that goes back to helping us. Now, again, in Montgomery County, we've never had that situation, but again, we do so much in trying to educate all of our officers about autism and other intellectual and developmental disabilities and how to have safe, positive, effective interactions. But again, it really goes about for us, you know, it goes back to us working together and communicating as much as possible.
Someone asked if the practice tomorrow is by Zoom or in person. It is in person, where you actually will come to our parking lot. Now you need to register for a time slot ahead of time. And Baltimore County Police will be there, and they will, while you're driving in the parking lot, they will show you where. They will actually pull you over with lights and sirens, and you will have the opportunity to practice everything that you've learned in tonight's webinar.
We're trying to make it as interactive as we can and help, you know, again, both of us. This is helping the officers who will be participating in this understand how this process will work. Again, you know, introducing the documents and the envelopes and all of that, and good practice for you to get used to doing just that as well, and helping maybe reduce a little bit of the anxiety, because this is practice, so that should you be stopped for real at some point in time, you are at least familiar with what this experience is going to be like.
Mm-hmm. And for anybody that's viewing this webinar at a later time, we are working to bring these practice traffic stops all around the state of Maryland. One person asked if this video will be available to review before tomorrow's driving sessions. No, unfortunately, we probably won't have it processed and up on the website by then, but we will have extra copies of the handouts from today's session. And also then we will have additional officers on site that can help answer any extra questions that you may have either before or after your traffic stop practice.
And I'm going to let you all in on a little secret, because me being a police officer for 16 years, if I'm not in my duties in a police car and an officer pulls up behind me, I'm automatically like, oh my goodness, like I'm checking to make sure everything's good. Like, obviously we want to have our seatbelt on as soon as we get in the car, but I'm looking at my speed. And so it, like Shelly was saying before, it is a very common thing to get anxious or nervous and worry, like, what are they behind me for? You know, did I do something? So just know that you're not alone in that. And that's why this is such an important thing. And we're so happy that you're participating in this, because it's just like practice makes perfect, right? Hopefully you'll never have to put what you've learned today into practice other than tomorrow. But unfortunately, sometimes, like Mo was saying, it very well may be something wrong with the vehicle. Maybe there's a tag light out, or the tag's expired, or your brake light's out. And it's nothing that you essentially did wrong. You didn't run a stop sign or a red light and you weren't speeding. And we could pull you over. But again, practice makes perfect, and it'll hopefully set you up for success. And just the bottom line is safety. We want to make sure that you stay safe, as well as the law enforcement officers law enforcement officers stay safe as well.
Question, can a parent stay in your car while during the practice tomorrow? Yes, absolutely. You can have your parent with you in the vehicle. Okay, well, if that's it for the questions, then I'm going to thank Sergeant Mo Greenberg, Officer Tara Bond, and
I look forward to seeing those of you who are participating tomorrow. I'll be there, and hope to get to meet everyone.
Absolutely. All right, well, thank you.